Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I am doing fine, thank you. How about you, Abby?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good, good.
Glad I could make this time.
Yes, excellent. Very pleased you're good. Where are you in the world today?
I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado, northern Colorado.
Very good. And how is the weather there?
Oh, it's been hot and dry and yeah, yeah. But
We've
it's
we've had lots of hotness, but it's a bit cool at the moment. We had some rain as well, which is good for everybody.
yeah.
So
Where
it's going okay.
what part of the where are you coming from?
Oh, UK, near
Oh,
near Cambridge, the original Cambridge, none
okay.
of your
Yeah.
modern knockoffs. So,
Okay.
yes.
Good clarification point.
There's a very nice one down in New Zealand as well. I visited a couple of times, but it's a long, long
Nice.
time ago. Um, and yeah, so what else? Yeah, and so Maintel all going well with you guys?
Yeah, things are going real great for us. It's a big summer. So we're vamping up. We're Our small little startup is doing great things this summer, so it's keeping us all busy.
Cool, excellent, brilliant. Let me just reply to a message just come in. One moment.
All right.
Mm.
Good morning slash afternoon.
Morning.
Oh. Abby, are you on Pacific time or are you
I'm on mountain time
Mountain
in
time? All
Colorado.
right.
Yeah.
All right. Brief urge to break into John Denver, but I'm not gonna.
It's classic. You have to now.
Yeah, now you're not gonna unhear it, are you? Actually, the one of my favorite, probably my final remaining favorite podcast is one called Hit Parade,
Hmm.
which is about the history of the musical charts, right? The Billboard Hot 100. And this month's installment is about uh, beef tracks and diss tracks and the chart history of diss tracks. And one of he always kind of holds everybody assumes that this whole trend started in hip hop, and that's kind of became the big thing. But he said, nah, they go all the way back. Yankee Doodle was a diss track, and but he talks about uh, "You're So Vain" by Carly
Yeah.
Simon,
What a great track!
and that one of the big mysteries is who is it about? Who is the you and "You're So Vain"? And she said, he said that Carly Simon has never conclusively said who it was,
Yeah.
except for at a charity auction for like $3 million. And but he said it's not Mick Jagger, who sang backup on the track, and you will never unhear that. And now you listen to "You're So Vain" and you hear Mick Jagger singing backup, and you're like, now it's like all I can hear
Yes, no, I've
is
heard that as
Mick
well. I've heard that
Jagger.
as well. Very cool.
I
Yeah,
need to re-listen.
I've never heard Mick
yeah.
Jagger in that before. I'll have to do that
He
today.
is absolutely there. Once you've heard it, you cannot unhear it.
It's amazing. It's like, okay, that's a whole new song for me.
So has it been
Okay.
a myth that it was about James Taylor?
James, it has been disavowed that it's about James Taylor,
Ah.
and supposedly one verse is about Warren Beatty, but the
Oh,
rest of it is
Unclear.
unknown, un undisclosed. Okay. On that cheery note, let's all right. So thanks to everybody who dove in and took a look at the proposal, the straw man. Let's put that down. Okay. So anyway, for folks who took a look at it, let's maybe start at the high level before we dive into the specifics. General impressions with this drift. Is it is it something that, okay, we're 80% of the way there, or not even close? What do you guys think?
Dialing in on the audiences in priority made a lot of sense. I think you can go wide and deep on it, but I think my initial thought that there were 4 groups, but using end users and developers, I think pull in the rest. So I think simplifying it is the best approach.
All right.
I
So
am sorry, Mike. I am curious though, what metrics do we have, if any, already that we don't have to search for? New to this group, so one question I have yet to ask is, are any of these metrics available to us? Anything from the trade shows, OC3, Confidential Computing Summit, websites, any other metrics available that already exist?
We can get a lot of those about specific activities. They measure things, for example, on the website, how many new unique visitors, time on site, what content did they engage with, those kind of things we have access to. When we go to events, in general, we get the typical eventy metrics. What we're not adept at yet is certain things like being able to track quality engagements at an event. We don't really have a good way to do that. We've made an attempt at it with a event specific QR code program that we've been using, but we don't have, I would say we have the usual web and social media kind of metrics, some of the general event metrics, but other than that, we really don't have either the means, the method, or the to go about getting a lot of these other
Or
things.
possibly the resources in terms of the people to pull these in and find out what's available and
yeah, so, I mean, some of these things, like particularly using these ideas in the mission, grow awareness and adoption. I mean, we can do some exposure tracking. How many people saw this content? How many people read this blog? How many people were at this show? Those kind of things we can track. What I was curious about in particular, or just wondering as I was writing it, is adoption. And that's hard for even a commercial entity. It's particularly if for somebody like an Intel or an AMD, where you're kind of removed from the end customer a bit. So we're a supplier into Dell, HP, Lenovo, and Microsoft, Google, etc. We don't really know who's using stuff, and so it's and then CCC is even another level removed from that. So I was a little bit fluxumed as like, how would you track adoption?
Can you track new membership into Confidential Computing Consortium? Businesses like Mainsail that say, hey, we can help you track adoption because we're talking to end customers. We're doing it ourselves in our company. So how many new businesses have joined? And then maybe throw the onus back on some of us to say, hey, what are you guys seeing? Can you help us with these metrics? How many new customers, how many new joint solutions or something where we can help bring some numbers to the table?
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of wondering about down here, which is what would be a relatively easy way to measure adoption. And most of our members of the consortium are commercial entities or I don't know if it's most, but it's certainly many of them. And it's like a simple survey to basically say, is business up, down, or flat? And if business is up, that's an indicator that we're getting growing adoption. Flat to down, we're treading water at best. So I thought that one might be one way to try and measure adoption, at least among the consortium's members.
Mike, may I suggest, I truly believe that before doing any adoption tracking, we need to track awareness, because we are those who are working with all the ecosystem just because of the nature of our project physically. Like as I wrote there, for example, when we talk to GPU cloud providers, right, we are not asking them to become the T provider, right, or bring the customer. We're just discussing them what capabilities we can unlock for them, right? It's like opportunity for them if they have customers who have AI for example, AI needs, right? And their customers want to have confidentiality. Do they see it? And this is a rare case when even GPU cloud provider, not Microsoft, not Google, right, but all the rest of the world, who are saying that, yes, we see a significant shift in the request for confidentiality, even for AI needs, right? So there is awareness. The level of awareness is so low that for myself, I would not even ask, for example, for CCC to track the previous events that were supposed to, because we know the result. The awareness of the whole community of ours, CCC, right? Or CC enablers, whatever we are called in all together, or standalone, this is so low that it requires just the awareness increase. And to me, in order to increase awareness, you do not try to track what's being done for each specific partner involved or vendor. You just need to spread the word. You may take all the CC members that we are here and try to do a lot of online content that you will just bombard with your own social media resources that you are fully relied on, independent from any other places, whatever, and just demonstrate use cases, what could be done, what could not be done, bring those who are concerned about that. So have this kind of dialogue ongoing. And in this sense, to me, that should increase the awareness, that should increase the followers, because you bring something you as CCC, not some specific vendor, but you as a CC, as uniting force. And I do hope that these kind of dialogues with AI focus, with any other non-AI focuses, whatever it is, right, will also maybe be paid attention by some kind of tier media, whatever, and those will bring some organic articles, requests for these kind of things. So this is the real awareness before comes the adoptions. Once you have it, you will see that the requests from end customers will be coming, from the developers who understand that they could use this technology will start be like growing. It's not that this technology is not needed. It is much needed. Nobody knows about that.
Okay, so I think to summarize, I think I heard is the primary problem is awareness, not necessarily adoption. Adoption is downstream of awareness, and adoption is low. And so the efforts should be focused on adoption, or pardon me, on awareness. Did I get that right?
That's what I believe, yes, because even Intel, who, for example, tells me a lot of time that Intel had made a lot of efforts to introduce this technology, right? And this is enough now for market to just embrace it. It's not yet, because the market doesn't know this technology. It's working, it's great. You cannot promote something that is just a theoretical. It's in practice. That's super great. But nobody from the demand perspective really knows that. And this is a misgap, significant one.
Yeah.
How do we track awareness, right? I think it comes down to the metric side again. Yeah. I like Yulia's point, though. I think she makes a great point.
There's certainly direct and indirect metrics that we can look at, right? So one of the things I spend a lot of time in is understanding what's happening in GitHub, what's happening at the projects that are offering solutions in and around confidential computing, what's happening in the Linux Foundation Slack channels, what kind of discussion and who's making contributions. So I think they're the indirect ones that we can get from the websites and other trackers, but the other indirect ones that are as interesting because it's giving us an indicator of what's happening in the market outside of what we directly watch.
Right.
And that'll
Mike,
give us indicators
oh.
as to like market growth and what's happening there. Because I tend to look at last year versus this year. What are the predictions for the CCC market? How much has it grown? Where has the focus shifted? Has the conversation gone from, and this is what I saw, gone from being very technical in description to being user-focused scenarios? So those kind of indirect metrics are as important as some of the direct ones, I think.
Thanks, Keith. I agree with what you just said, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say a couple of things. So the first is that there are other more qualitative rather than necessarily quantitative things we can check. So, for instance, at RSA this year, I would say 3 or 4 times as many people, percentage-wise, when I said, "Do you know what confidential computing is?" when they turned up at the booth, had an answer yes. They weren't always completely right. Just, maybe 5% has moved to 20% of people. Now, of course, that's self-selected, but you could take it the other way around, that the year before that they weren't. So, there are those sorts of things we can say. There's also stuff like how many sessions are accepted at conferences, because that is only partly dependent on the awareness of the session panels of this being an important thing to talk about. And so that's maybe the number of articles. Now, we don't tend to try and get articles accepted by things like the Newsstack or the Register. Maybe we should. Neither of those are generally up for that sort of style of thing, but maybe we should try and do that, or other places that are more interested in those types of articles. So that's another way of tracking. How responsive the ecosystem, the broader ecosystem, is to hear about this is another way, which is more difficult to track with quantitative metrics. But there has been an uptick, not as much as we'd like, but there has been an uptick there. That's all.
Yeah, I think I think we have, in terms of awareness, hard metrics, we're going to have are going to be things where we can literally count engagements. Like, we promoted a blog on social and it produced 200 downloads or 200 reads. Those, I think, we're going to we'll be able to count. I do think some of these things that you're describing, Mike, are a bit of like a vibe check. Like, what's the vibe? Is the vibe up, down, or flat? And those, of course, suffer from a lot of objectivity issues. But it's helpful. I think they're helpful in gauging, engaging which direction things are going. The external surveys, I mean, we've here at Intel, we've done external surveys, and we've seen the phenomenon that Yulia was talking about, where the first time we did a survey about confidential computing awareness, I mean, it was like really low single digit percentages, and then a year later it was up. It was we scraped the bottom of double digits, but it was still compared to something like, have you heard of large language models or generative AI? That's 99%. So it's we're a long ways away from those levels of awareness. And the problem is that each one of those surveys is $100,000. And I don't think we're going to get the budget for that particular type of metric tracking. Okay, let's talk a little bit. So mission, this mission thing has got that conflict, and that's a conflict, but that viewpoint built into it, which is unlike a lot of other Linux community or Linux Foundation hosted directed funds. We do not specifically exist for the promotion of a particular open source software project. That the committee exists to grow awareness and adoption of confidential computing. We are, now, if a particular open source project helps us do that, it helps us grow awareness among either end users or developers, by all means, we should be promoting it, but it is not our reason for existence to drive people to Coconut, for example. I also said that growing the membership is not a part of the mission. That is a means, not an end. Or I could say it's the byproduct of higher awareness or adoption. As awareness grows and adoption grows, being part of the Confidential Computing Consortium is just more attractive. And this is, hey, I've seen this content. I've seen its presence, online. I've seen them at an event that I went to. I heard their speakers, and I want to be part of that community. I think that becomes a byproduct. It's not necessarily where we spend our effort. We don't write content to say, or we wouldn't expend our blog energy or our social energy, at least not in great proportions, to growing the membership. Thoughts on that?
Mike, I really like what you wrote. It's always, to me, the question in the details, because with the mission, etc., fully supports what you wrote. Let's say it this way.
Okay.
So I struggle with this slightly, because I think that I think it kind of feels like a secondary, maybe rather than a first degree thing, in that we've always said that the CCC is not about having as many members as possible, but in order to do our work and to feel that we are promoting things, we want as many members as possible from the ecosystem. And therefore, one of the measures for how well we've done in telling people about it is people wanted to join us. And so therefore, it is in some ways a measure. So it is in some ways an end. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, go ahead, Abby.
Yeah, I was kind of conflicted with that as well. And I understand why you have that comment. It's not part of our mission, but to grow awareness is through people joining the group, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's how we're going to amplify our sound, so to speak.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I was thinking that's kind of a bank shot, but not really. Think a little bit harder about it. It's like, yeah, okay, no, that makes sense. Especially if the kind of the amplification, if you're relying on the members to be your amplifiers, I think that becomes important. Where in one version of the CCC, there's the membership, and then there is the amplification of awareness and messaging, and they are separate things. It's like you could have 10,000 members and you have your amplification is just your social, your events, your paid media, your PR is separate from how many members you have. But if the membership itself is part of the amplifier, then growing the membership becomes very aligned with growing awareness and ultimately growing adoption, because you have more speakers, more, a louder voice with more members. Okay. I'm going to write that down so I don't forget it.
As someone that's new, who just joined our company as a member, right? We're totally talking to all of our customers, our prospects, our partners. We're building confidential compute. Like, we're an advocate. We're already, our engineers are already pretty knowledgeable. Some of you guys have met Eric Wolf, so just some insight from a new member too.
Yeah. And Keith, I see your comment there of, when do you know you're done? It's like when it's absolutely taken for granted, like HTTPS. I agree. I think we're a ways away from that, though.
I think setting a course for that would be helpful.
Yeah, we dissolved the CCC because there's no more worlds to conquer. Okay. End users and developers, those are the two that I thought would be the two big macro categories. And a lot of people ask, okay, how do you define end user and how do you define developer? And I think of end users as, the company or organization that is the buyer and user of confidential computing technologies for their business or other mission. So
I think that makes sense.
Bank, government, hospital, retailer, that's the consumers who are likely to be, mainsail super protocol customers. The developers are those that can benefit from integration of confidential computing into their products and services. So this is outreach to, you think about a database provider, a customer loyalty analytics engine, other types of software or services that they may be founded with, ideally, or they're founded with confidentiality in mind, or they already exist and could benefit from enhancements to confidentiality. That would be what I have in mind when we say developers.
I do have to consider academia as a big part of the development community as well. From previous open source projects I've worked within, adoption and success of that project was critical through academia, because as students and researchers came out and went into biopharmas, whatever company, chip developer they've gone into, they've brought those technologies with them and influenced those technologies within the stacks of those organizations. So I would have to see this as containing academia and research as well. At least that's how I view it.
If I may, share the recent insights, we were talking with the healthcare research company. We were discussing how to run the pilot, etc. And we were also struggling maybe the easiest ways, for example, to onboard the PhD students from the same, from the other organization, but who may be more active, willing to do something for their research, etc. And the interesting thing, for example, for medical was that you don't know how, for example, in this country, the healthcare system works. You have in some clinic, for example, you have a very reputable doctor, right? And if he decides that this is something, the use case that they wish to have for their clinics, they would get those PhD students from the researchers in order to develop, prepare data, do everything, and be the part of the project itself, but not verse round, right? So there is always the customer, right? And this is those who will actually use this case will be able to bring those. So it's not that it's either academy or the business, but if there is a link, for example, in healthcare that may be unhidden for the businesses, but actually through these kind of collaborations, we could also leverage the resources from the academia itself as well.
Yeah, and I've got to admit, I had a lot of conversations at Confidential Computing Summit with, grad students or professors of something. There was a lot, there's a strong academic presence, at least at that event, and I think OC3 also brings in a fair academic thing. So I think it would be wise to embrace them. These will be the founders and developers of, tomorrow, and maybe not a too distant a tomorrow. So I think it would make sense to target them. Okay.
Mike, I have because it's very high level, but when we go to end customers, this is where the tricky thing comes in, because when we think about end customers, even when I read your sentence, it misled me. That's why I even left the comment. To me, within end customers, you may target, for example, security people, you may target IT people, right? But these are not the ones who will actually make the decision that the confidential computing needs for their business, right? So for me, splitting down or diving down who are end customers as our primary target audience within this end user space is really important. Otherwise, we will continue talking with, with the wrong people from the CCC perspective.
Let me double click on that for a second. So are you thinking that we need to specify the particular market segments like healthcare, banking, government? Is that what you're thinking? Or
no. All the fields are relevant for confidential computing, right? So we don't definitely want to limit ourselves. But within, like let's say banking, you may talk with security people, and the messages you will drive them is definitely not the ones that you will drive to those who will make the business decisions from CMO perspective to drive new, customers to the bank, right? Or some new service that you will be having, right? So, or maybe AI for internal leads, what kind of data analytics or data scientists, etc., will need in order to bring something new to their internal customers. So to me, end customers are those who will advocate to their IT, to their purchasing, to their security departments that this is the technology that we need. You, internal staff, need to identify how to work with it, what kind of, barriers to overcome, how to test that this is exactly what we need. But this is the technology that helps us to solve our business needs. And once it is in place, the rest will be just a supporting, environment. Instead of so for example, security people, they are definitely the least advocate for innovations, at least if there are some geeks, right? But in general, they are the least ones, maybe, who will advocate their businesses to drive the adoption of confidential computing. But if it's the marketing director who needs the new, offer for their customers, for their, I don't know if it's retail shopper experience, right? Something very personalized. They need this kind of private data. They need to analyze it. They are not, what they have internally might be not enough to make this kind of much more personalized offer. That's where confidential computing comes in. That's where the collaborations between companies comes in. That's where the new insights come in. And how to do this collaboration without confidential computing? I don't know how. It's very tricky. It's very legal, limited, and a lot of time consuming. With confidential computing, it's much easier to do. But this is not the security or IT guys who will be pushing it. This is the business who will be seeing the value from that. And this is the end user for me, in the way I see CCC adoption and awareness increase in general.
Yeah, so I think we can't treat we can't say, oh, it's just businesses, and can say that our audience is businesses as an undifferentiated blob. It's certain types of businesses and certain types of roles or personas within those businesses, and within each of those lanes, you've got a different value prop. You've got to come at it with a different value proposition. So I hear you. I agree with what you're saying.
I agree too, and it's hard not to go down that rabbit hole of vertical or industry, right? Because the decision tree, where the money comes from, changes from, for example, government to commercial to healthcare to finance to medtech, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I do think I generally agree with what Yulia said about most organizations can benefit from confidentiality, but there is a certain you got to fish where the fish are element to it as well, which is who has got high motivation and money and are motivated to change, right? Or motivated to seek out innovation to help them. And the big three of those, at least has been in my experience, is finance, healthcare, government, and those are the big ones. But others will see others, other have had greater success in other kind of things like Web3 and other types of entities. Mike.
Yeah, so there's, I think, a further complexity, which is that for some, in the same way that Dell is a customer for Intel, but a healthcare provider is a customer for Super Protocol, for instance. So that's going to be different, but also there's going to be in some cases, quite a broad interest across different sectors, whereas maybe some of our members have point solutions which only fit, I don't know, revenue generation in finance. So knowing what metrics to pull for what sectors will be partly dependent on our members and on what their priorities are and the resources they have available to specify those. So being able to say this is, across all sectors or geographies or verticals, here are our things we care about, is going to be difficult. So we need just to be realistic about what that looks like, I think.
Yeah. I think, good marketing practice would tell you that you want to, in general, you gotta know who your potential buyer is and kind of narrow cast to them for the most part.
But we're a platform. That's irrelevant. Not relevant, but it's almost impossible.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily impossible for any given piece of content. But the question is that when you think about the mission of the organization, it's not to service the subset of members that are targeting finance, for example. We've got members that are targeting all kinds of different industries, and so if we are going, that's where the biggest, the most advanced adopters are, then that member is going to feel like, hey, you're not really doing a lot for me. Okay. Okay, so some of the proposed tactical changes versus what we are doing today. I think the number one change is kind of the combination of 1 and 2, which is a shift of dollars and effort from events to content marketing. This is absolutely and utterly dependent upon having the right content for the right types of audiences. And that's, none of these efforts escape work. One of the things that bothers me about events is just the sheer amount of labor intensity. But they're labor intensive with stuff like ordering table drapes and electrical drops for the booth.
And making sure someone's there to pick them up, and then
managing the logistics of all this stuff, versus labor intensiveness for content delivery is, hey, I need to dragoon / persuade a member to say, hey, you had an exciting development this month. Let's write up a blog and social post about it and send it out on the newsletter, or promote it on LinkedIn or whatever. That creates new types of labor, but at least as a result of it, we get a scalable artifact out of it.
And
the
it tends
labor
to be less synchronous as well, which is useful.
Yeah. So I think that is probably my largest proposed shift in our investment portfolio is event sponsorship for like what we're doing at AI Infrastructure Summit. We would instead sync that into, hey, I want a few great pieces of content, maybe targeting specific, either specific use case, specific persona, specific industry, and promote those to those targets using whatever tens of thousands of dollars we use to buy our spot at AI Infrastructure Summit. I'd use those tens of thousands of dollars to promote those content to the right personas on LinkedIn.
To develop the content too, right? The thoughtful content development is as important as delivering it to the audience. I mean, don't need fidget spinners, don't need USB drives, but thoughtful content lasts long.
Yeah. Now, and this comes into this number 4, which I think is going to be a hot topic among the members and the governing board, which is the balance between neutral content and commercial content. And so this is, my theory behind this is that the shoppers, the types of buyers that are ultimately going to be consuming products from the likes of us here on this call they don't wake up in the morning and say, gotta get me some of that confidential computing. They're going to, their thinking is like, I have got, I want to expand my business in this way, or I want to differentiate myself from my competition on privacy. We had an adjacent company, or we had a security breach, and we need to take measures to make sure that that's not going to happen again. All of these, whatever these reasons are, they're not, confidential computing is a means, not an end. And so the commercial products are usually the solutions to those particular problems, and those solutions include confidential computing as one of their key enabling technologies. So I think if we're going to have appealing content, I think we have to showcase commercial products that hit the mark for those use cases. And this, I know, is going to be an object of interest to kind of the governing board and maybe the Linux Foundation on how we actually go through with this, because it is different than most other programs that are under the Linux Foundation umbrella.
So, Mike, I would definitely expect that the discussions would be more on the governing board and Linux Foundation level than on the CCC members level, for sure, to me. At least what I would probably add as a suggested technical change is that each of these company has its own agenda, like a CCC vendor, whatever it is, right? Its own agenda. If we develop our own content and use CCC just as one more platform to distribute our use case, however diplomatically correct it is, right? So whatever meeting the requirements which are, it is still one more place. But I definitely assume that CCC wants to embrace the leadership of CC. It means that CCC needs to have its own agenda, its own content that Kate, I think, was talking about, this content delivery, content creation, not just using the CCC members, but creating its own agenda, bringing something, coordinating, doing like all online events that the other companies are doing offline, but doing online, having a lot of CCC members with unique content to share, having a lot of, I don't know, connections from different, wherever it is, from healthcare, from whatever it is, just to share the, just to be the one who will propose the agenda, who will coordinate everything, who will bring those who have something to say, and be this kind of platform for discussion any topics related to confidential computing. So bring something, be those who will bring something unique that everyone else would want to be part of, that everyone else would want to become a member, because this is, for example, the way to be, I don't know, for example, become a speaker, if that's any restrictions on there, or to become, I don't know, not a member, but just share something, or just to follow. It's not just one of the platforms, it is the CC platform.
Yes, I think the what you're saying there, Yulia, just makes me think that this will be an interesting balancing act for us, and we're going to have to figure out how we make judgments. Because one of the things that I am concerned about with opening the door to more commercial content is one, various resentments among the other members, that, it's like, hey, the CCC is using its juice to promote either my competitor or other companies that's not me, and so we have to make sure that we have clear guidelines and fair rules about what commercially oriented content we provide. We're going to need clear guidelines to say, okay, we are not going to turn the CCC into an advertising platform for a handful of companies. But it's like, what guidelines did those companies that we do amplify follow? What did they do that the CCC has judged it as this serves the overall interest of the community, not just the narrow commercial interest of that member? And then we're going to need a judge, and so I think we're probably going to get into debates and disputes about whether a particular piece of content is suitable for promotion with CCC, and we're going to need ultimately probably some kind of a person method guidelines by which pieces of content are judged. There is going to be there's also another risk of particular entities that say, hey, look, they've got just a super prolific content generation machine or something like that, and all of a sudden 8 out of the 10 items in the newsletter or social posts are all from one company that's just extremely prolific in their content generation. We're going to have to, again, to make sure that the CCC channels don't just become 1 or 2 companies' advertising platform, is something that we're going to have to be mindful of. Okay, we are closing in.
Yeah.
On...
So can I add something to that? I think it's less likely to be a problem that the CCC members are unhappy, and it's more likely to be the LF is, we don't do this. This is not how the LF works. It's not what the LF's for. And that, I think, is what we're going to need to address more than this. I think the bar is going to be far lower in terms of what's acceptable than you like. Maybe wrong, but that is my suspicion. And that is something we need to address.
All right.
And how
I agree.
does that align with our awareness and adoption mission?
Yeah, I mean, and that becomes an
So,
interesting.
well,
that,
the
there's some debate.
CCC, it does not have an awareness in its governance document. It does have adoption. You could say that one goes hand in hand with the other, but that's what it is, right? So we do need. I'm not saying that this is right. I'm just saying we are part of the Linux Foundation, and this is like to be a struggle. I may be wrong, but. And I think, we've got an entirely appropriate question to ask, which is, if we can't do this, what are we supposed to do? Right? So, no, again, no good answers, but this is stuff I think we need to address.
May I ask a question? If the governing body actually should be expected to be more supporting what we're talking about, or more on the Linux Foundation current expectations? Are they more supporters, or those that we also need to address?
I don't think we know the answer to that, but when it comes down to it, the Linux Foundation can overrule the governing board.
Okay.
Yeah, that becomes. Yeah, there's all kinds of interesting implications that get uncorked. When we poke on this a little bit, I think we're going to find an interesting.
But I think the way we'll have to probably get around this is to say, whenever we produce an article which we're promoting, or let's rephrase this, we need to think about articles and materials as promoting the Confidential Computing Consortium and its work that it does with the CC around confidential computing. And secondary is the commercial side. I think that's probably the way we're going to have to do it. That may not be enough, I don't know, but this is the conversation. And I think if we have clear requests as to what we want and what clear questions as to what we want to know, it's going to be easier than if we kind of just try stuff and push.
Yeah, there's in the next hour, during the outreach committee meeting, I put together a straw man another slide that kind of addresses this question of how could a piece of content bridge the gap, and it's basically what could be some of the requirements that would meet both kind of the spirit of Linux Foundation community building and it is not. I mean, the thing is, it's not my mission as CCC outreach temporary chairman to to drive the commercial interests of any one company, but it is my interest in maybe using the appeal and the use cases of commercial products to grow the category. And so, people say, well, you're favoring Super Protocol, or you're favoring, Mainsail by promoting them in this thing. I was like, no. If you look at the way that their content is structured, it is both a showcase of their membership in the CCC. It is a showcase of confidential computing technology. And it solves a customer problem through their commercial implementation of it.
Yep.
So,
and I think that's going to be our best chance. Honestly, I sent an email to you and Yulia earlier today, kind of along those lines, on a slightly different topic, which it might be worth looking at as well.
Okay.
Are we going to call this now? So we got a couple of minutes, or is there anything else you wanted to finish off?
Yeah, I think I proposed some. Specifics of how would we how do we kind of span this out from the audience to the measurement metrics via a couple of means. In the case with the end users, I basically picked content marketing as one of the means, and then event speakerships as the other. And then for solution developers, this is again, content marketing targeted toward developers. event
So
speakerships.
just
And
a question on the event speakerships. Is this paid or not?
I would like to get, I mean, as everybody loves the freebie, right? So to be invited, I would, I would
So
like to be
I don't have
invited.
I don't have
don't-
a problem with that. All it is that there is a resource cost in terms of getting invited to these things, which is the person who's going to be doing the speaking, and that's often going to be me.
Mhm.
Having to do lots of CFPs and do research and work with folks. And I don't have a problem with that, but we're currently working out, whether the CCC can afford to do me and events, or events and me and all the other bits and pieces. So we just need to think about, does outreach say we'll take half of the budget we had last year in order to make sure that this other stuff is available, for instance? I don't know. That's just the sort of
Okay.
things that we may need to think about.
Okay. And I think that is an important tactical decision, which is, do we want to have, basically one of the things that I like about having you as like a permanent standing member of the CCC is, you are our designated hitter for, speakerships and events, because if we have to go rally up a member to, go to Basel, Switzerland and speak at the banking conference,
Bad example, but yes.
you run example, you run into all the questions of, hey, is this aligned with our, our interest? Is this, can we afford the travel? Yada, yada, yada. So, okay.
And I certainly see value in me, but then again, I would see value in me, right? So I don't want to be prejudging
motivated.
Well,
reasoning.
I can't think what you're talking about. Yeah, no. Okay, cool. Let's see you folks in 3 or 4 minutes. That's great.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
guys, I would propose, let me look through the comments and make some adjustments, and then I'll do an offline thing. I would like, again, I don't want to beleaguer this meeting series into, 3 or 4 meetings. If we think this is close enough to put in front of the governing board and uncork the questions that are, you reveal to them what we think is the strategy and mission, talk about the tactics, and then we can refine the specific implementations as we go. All right. Are we okay with me accommodating as many of these comments as I possibly can, and then maybe taking this to the outreach committee, not in the meeting that's in 3 minutes, but in the one that's 2 weeks and 3 minutes?
Mike, I really think that what Mike was saying is that there is a big struggle ahead, and we should not focus on different KPIs, metrics, etc. if we are not solving the key issue. Depending on how we agree, then it will help us move on with the strategy development itself. So I would definitely support to make it as short as possible, the preparation, and not proposing, not offering it as the final strategy, but just as an interim process, because we see that this is a very significant change that we suggest to apply for the benefits of CCC in general.
Okay, so basically focus on everything above this table. Whoops.
KPI,
and
even
take
KPIs,
that to the governing board.
KPIs, because depending on if it's really adoption or if it's awareness, you will have different KPIs metrics, right? So there's no need to dive into what KPIs are, as long as there is no fundamental agreements what we are trying to reach.
Okay, got it. All right, we got another meeting here in a few minutes. So thank you guys for turning out today. This was a good conversation. These are all the hard questions that we're going to have to work our way through, but really appreciate you guys brain power on this. All right.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
Hopefully talk to you in a few. Bye.
Bye.